we recommend you take this moment to do what we're about to do, which is enjoy an Alp.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Mr. President, no Putin's interest? No Putin's interest? Are you disappointed by that?
No, I didn't anticipate. I actually said, why would he go if I'm not going? Because I wasn't going to go. I wasn't planning to go. I would go, but I wasn't planning to go. And I said, I don't think he's going to go if I don't go. And that turned out to be right. But we have people there. Marco, as you know, is doing a fantastic job. Marco's there, Secretary of State, and we have people there. But I didn't think it was possible for Putin to go if I'm not there. Jennifer?
Do you have an update, sir?
Strength of our military doesn't come from its fighter jets. It really comes from our people. That's you. It comes from our people. You're unbelievable people. The aptitude and all of the things you have to do what you do. You know, I look at some of those engines, and I'm a pretty smart cookie. I would tell you I'm real smart. And I look at you, and you take those engines apart and put them back together, blindfolded, and fix them up. It's amazing what you're able to do. And then to fly them, just incredible. You're incredible. You're a very special group of people. And that's why in my 2026 budget includes across the board. Maybe you don't want it. Look, for the good of the country, you don't have to take it. Pay raises for each and every one of you, substantial pay raises. But you don't have to take it. You don't have to take it. You can go to your commanding officer and say, sir, I'd rather not take that pay. I love my country, sir. I refuse to take it. Anybody here, raise your hand, please, if you refuse to take it. Let's see here. All right. Well, at least we have smart people. That's good. So you do your duty for us, and as Commander-in-Chief, I will always do and fulfill my duty to you. That's what I'm doing.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Welcome to the best intel brief out there, anywhere, bar none. We're going to bring it to you today. Today is a time for choosing. This is what we're going to talk about today. A time for choosing between peace and war. A time for choosing between security and freedom. A time for choosing between the USA or the Chinese Communist Party. A time for choosing between Satan or Christ, to be honest. President Trump has gone around the wars in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, and he's making massive efforts at peace in the Middle East, bringing back trillions of dollars in investment commitments to the United States. Trillions. You can't fathom how much money that is. The golden age is upon us. Tell your kids, go into American manufacturing. That's my advice. But we've got the hell of a show today. I've got two treats for you. First, second segment will be Dan O'Shea. Dan is a former SEAL, lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy, retired, and was the chief hostage negotiator in Iraq, and also spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. Why do I want to bring him on? Because President Trump said this morning he wants Bagram Air Force Base or Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan back. You know, Joe Biden gave that away to the Chinese Communist Party, essentially, and Trump wants it back. So we've also got a very good relationship with the Afghan resistance against the Taliban. We've asked them to come on. It won't be today, but soon we will get their foreign minister in and talk to you about what's happening in Afghanistan to retrieve the air base. Laura Logan has also agreed to come on to discuss. She's had a lot of time there, and she's been vocal about it, that it's really easy to take back with a small contingent of special operations. We'll talk about all that and see whether that's true, right, wise, or not. But we're gonna dig into that whole thing. By the way, welcome to the crew. The crew's clear it hot in the chat. Love all the comments. We try to get to as many as we can during the show, but it's a full-time job. But the staff works hard, and really appreciate you contributing to the conversation here. Second hour, Michael Yon is going to be here. He's confirmed. You know, Michael's always iffy, but he says, I'm going to be there at 11, so 11 Eastern, which isn't an hour. So we'll see if he actually makes it and does what he says he's going to do. But we love having Michael on because his insight is amazing. And guess what? We're going to talk about Texas. Sedition by the Texas leadership of the Governor Abbott on down, against America, against Americans, against President Trump and his directives on immigration and securing the border. There's some bad stuff going on in Texas. We got some rhinos in Texas, and we're going to have to deal with that. And Michael will deal with all of that. Today is May 15th. I'm your host, L Todd Wood, and this is your mission brief. Trump wants the Bagram Air Force Base back. We're going to talk about that. Texas government betrays the nation on the border and with illegal immigration, refusing to help ICE. We're going to discuss that, and refusing to help the deportations. Trump in the Middle East. You saw all the cold open, just an amazing welcome and respect. Fighter jets. You even saw the harem in the UAE moving their hair around. That's quite a respect in the Middle East, taking their hoods off like that. So very, very interesting reception for the president. And I can tell you, as we spoke yesterday, that the Middle East is changing. You can feel it in the air. A lot of people don't like it because they like the status quo, they like the wars, and they want to keep them going because there's a lot of money there, and there's a lot of hidden agendas inside our own government, and we're going to continue to out all that. Preparing for nuclear war. This is a bad subject, but it's happening, and it's happening in a lot of ways, even in ways you may not expect, like with airlines. They're preparing for nuclear war. That's really disturbing. We have a lot of people that want nuclear war, we believe, and want to reduce the population and think it's survivable. As Tucker said, we don't want to live underground. We want to march forward, like Elon Musk said, to the stars and a lot more humans instead of depopulating the earth. And we want a lot of prosperity, like President Trump said. And then Ukraine negotiations in Istanbul. This is a huge story as well, which we'll dig into today. Just so much going on. Really appreciate you being here. We'll be right back after this break with the rest of the SCIF, and we'll bring on our guests.
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order
Tucker
now.
Carlson, you may have noticed that the companies whose products you buy tend to kind of hate you. They're controlled by massive multinational corporations, and they have all kinds of weird agendas that you're supporting when you buy their products. We didn't realize that nicotine pouches, which we've used for years, were in this category. We just want a nicotine pouch. And then they lecture you and take the money you give them to support things that you hate. So we decided we're going to make our own, and we did. And it is, we can say, not bragging here, just stating fact, the single best nicotine pouch in the world. It's called ALP, and it comes in all kinds of excellent flavors. Wintergreen, tropical fruit, chilled mint, refreshing chill, sweet nectar, and a bunch of others that we're rolling out. By the way, there are 20 per tin, not 15 like some of our competitors who will not be named soon. And they're in 3, 6, and 9 milligrams. It is the single best nicotine pouch ever made. Go to alppouch.com. You will not regret it.
Of the Green Beret, silver wings upon their chest. These are men, America's best. 100 men will test today, but only 3 win the Green Beret.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Glad to have you today. Really appreciate it as the week winds down. I can tell you we got some powerful guests tomorrow. Ivan Raiklan will be on tomorrow morning. I've also got trying to work some scheduling, but we may have a Pakistani general to give his side of the conflict in the war in Pakistan and in the conflict between India and Pakistan. We're going to try to delve into these conflicts and get to the bottom of both of them, give both sides an ability to talk about it. So stay tuned for that. But exciting stuff next week. We got some really big guests too, likely Laura Logan and others, Tony Schaefer, just some big names coming our way. Spoke with Eric Prince this morning, so we'll see if we can get him back on as well. So we're waiting on Dan O'Shea to come in, but in fact, he just texted me. That was that ding you saw there. So we'll see when Dan comes in, but he should be here shortly. I want to ask you, we need your support. If you're not a supporter on our no ad subscriptions, please go to any of the CDM.press sites. CDM.press will do it, or armedforces.press, top right corner. Subscribe with no ads. You get access to all of our sites. We're at 13 sites right now around the globe, from the Middle East to Eastern Europe to Asia, all over the United States, with different papers, local news, military, Hispanic. It's all there. CDM.press. Put us in your daily scan, morning, noon, and night. That's another great way you can help us. Just bring that traffic to us. It's really important. Tell your friends, share the links, share the videos. But sign up for our no ad subscription. It's $10 a month or $100 a year, and you get access to all of our content. And it's we get a lot of good response on this. People love it, and we really appreciate you helping us out there. So still waiting on Dan. Let's go into our first story. He should be here shortly, but let me just text him and say, come on now. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Just producing on the fly here. We're a little low on staff because everybody's out reporting. We've got a lot going on, and we're going to be doing some overseas reporting as well. Some big trips coming up, and we'll tell you about that, as well as possibly down on the border, down to Panama and some other things. So it's a lot going on at CDM.press. But our first story is the Istanbul trip with President Trump. Let me just bring that up here and hold on. I'll bring that story in while we wait on Mr. O'Shea. So Zelensky initially taunted Putin to come to the Istanbul negotiations, but Putin said, no, I'm sending some lower level guys, but they're serious guys, and go negotiate with them. So Zelensky backed out, and he actually went to see Erdogan. You got to see the big picture here, because Turkey is getting very, very powerful in the southern underbelly of NATO and Central Asia. And Erdogan likely is going to help in these negotiations with Zelensky, because guess what? Trump just gave Erdogan a big solid down in Syria by taking sanctions off the Syrian government and meeting with the new head of Syria. So you see how all this works. Trump is giving and he's expecting. And I think he expects Erdogan to make sure that he comes on, that he deals with this situation in Istanbul. All right, so Mr. O'Shea is there. I'm going to bring him in. We'll get back to this other story in a second. Hold on. Dan, how you doing, my friend? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I think you're on mute.
No, I'm not. You got me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I got you 5x5.
Oh, excellent, man. Excellent. How you doing? It's been a while, my friend. How you doing?
I know. Been a while. Good. In fact, shit, I was going to be reaching out to you via email. I am finishing up Into the Lion's Den. Don't get ahead with Kurt, but I'm going to finish it, get in touch with Kurt. I literally have an iMac, which, the big, huge MacBook.
Yeah.
Getting updated right now. And I've gone through, pulled out. I ran across, I don't know, a couple months ago, not a month, like 6 weeks ago. These are the three wheel books that I had from 04 to 06 in Iraq, with all my notes from daily notes, taking.
Oh, yeah.
And that plus, and this has been eating at me for a long time, for a host of reasons, and not only to get that commitment to Kurt and you guys, but I'm not with Equitas anymore, and I want to focus. I've got to get Into the Lion's Den done. I'm tweaking the format a bit, and we can talk about it offline. But let's jump in. When we going live? Are we going live with?
Yeah, we're live right now, bro.
Oh, perfect. Well, then now that I've told all your viewers that Into the Lion's Den is going to get published, I better.
Let's just while we're on that subject, let's promote it. So give your overview of give us a 30,000 foot view of your history. You're a Naval Academy grad, former lieutenant commander, former SEAL, but what did you do in Southwest Asia that gave you the amazing expertise to write this book?
Yeah. So like a lot of veterans post 9/11, a lot of us came back, either were active duty or like myself came back on active to, because of the attacks, obviously with the intent that this never happens again. Mm-hmm. And towards the end of my 3-year mobilized service, I accepted one last set of orders to Iraq. It would have been my third deployment, post 9/11. And, I had a wife at home who wanted to start a family. And I said, it's just one more deployment. It's only 120 days in the sandbox.
Right.
And the day I arrived in Baghdad, and I went over with what was called the Joint Interagency Coordination Group, or the Joint Interagency Task Force at a U.S. Central Command. And this was an effort we learned after 9/11, when 9/11 happened, largely because not that we didn't envision something like that happen, but there was a catastrophic failure at the interagency level between our components of government, the intelligence community, the CIA, DIA, the FBI, law enforcement, stovepiping information, withholding information, not sharing across the lines from DOD to the intelligence to law enforcement to diplomacy. Yeah. And so there was this task force, and it changed its name multiple times. But it started out at U.S. Central Command, obviously the center of the war after 9/11, to basically bring together all the interagency to liaise at U.S. Central Command. So we had reps from Treasury Department, ICE, Immigration, Border Patrol, FBI, CIA, DIA, virtually the entire interagency then sent liaisons to U.S. Central Command, and U.S. Central Command partnered them so that half the staff were these interagency folks, the other half were active duty military. A lot of Marines in the mix, and just basically let's figure out how we do this coordination so that failure to share critical intelligence doesn't happen, which is, we know, one of the big critical things. We could have put together the piece of 9/11 had we just been sharing in the interagency. So that's what this organization was tailored to do. And I was here in 2004, lieutenant commander, former, Navy SEAL background, just spent 2 years at U.S. headquarters with General Franks, briefing flag officers on, special operations missions. Again, I'm a reservist. I'm just doing, the citizen soldier, your classic, reservist who volunteered to, give up a couple years of his life. And I went over for one more assignment and literally flew the FBI team into Baghdad, was living in their compound, had access to the agency with a badge. And then I had a blue badge at the U.S. State Department. So my job was to be an interagency liaison officer, to coordinate across DIME, as diplomacy, intelligence, military, and law enforcement, DIME. Well, day one, I land in Baghdad and I go to my first morning meeting with an Air Force Academy guy named Major General Sargent, who you may know, fighter jock. And I'm in a room with all 06s, all full bird colonels. And it was like a plebe come around. The general was going down the line going, Colonel, what do you got? Okay, Colonel Jones, what's the next? And very professional, very organized, and, typical military precision. Started it sharply at 07. Meeting was done in 45 minutes with everyone having their taskers. Then I walk across the embassy compound at the old Republican Palace. This is Baghdad, Saddam's former seat of power. And I go to the State Department for my 9 o'clock meeting. And I'm wandering my way through the embassy. I've never been there. I've literally just arrived. And I find the Pull Mill section, political military, which is where the liaison between diplomacy, ambassadors and diplomats, and the military. So I walk in the room and I, see a room with no one's really in charge. It's a circle, round table. People are grabbing coffee, and meeting was starting late. And it was a very different environment, right? Going from the military that I'm used to just the embassy. And when we finally sat down, the chief of staff and another Irish guy named Tom Duffy, Notre Dame guy where my brothers went to school, we talked beforehand. And Tom had been a Navy officer, service warfare, before transitioning to foreign service. So he's leading the meeting. He's going through the ambassador's, key points, and comes to the last item. Now, mind you, this is July 6, 2004. So the insurgency is just getting up on steroids at that point. And he comes to the last order of business, says, hey, folks, last order. 2 Bulgarian truck drivers were kidnapped in Mosul 10 days ago. Some guy named Zarqawi says they're going to cut this guy's head off unless the Bulgarians pull their 500-man battalion out of the coalition of the willing, the 41 nations that were supporting the effort. He said, President Bush spoke to the president of Bulgaria yesterday, said, you're a valued member of the coalition. We, the U.S., will do everything we can to save these hostages. And he said, 2 envoys arrived today at noon. We need to brief them and tell them everything the U.S. is doing to save the lives of these 2 hostages. Well, he looks at the only military guy in the room and says, Dan, you're a Navy SEAL. Go call your friends. And that was the start of what became the next 2 years of my life. And it was, I basically built an interagency organization called the Hostage Working Group. I pulled in everyone from law enforcement, not only U.S. FBI agents, but Iraqi police. I pulled in DIA, CIA, all the intelligence community. And frankly, within 10 days, and this was, mind you, this was a month after the Nick Berg beheading, approximately a month. And so
the journalist,
and the insurgency realized this is a very effective tool. And if you go back, and I tracked all this, we ended up tracking every kidnapping in a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. We tracked every kidnapping and we put as much intelligence in each column that we could. And we ultimately, when we went back in time, before April of 2004, the kidnapping was not even on the radar screen. It wasn't even being reported. And in April, that 1 month, this is the month the Blackwater convoy got hit. Nick Berg, I think, got grabbed towards the end of the month. But that's the month when the insurgency announced itself. And they did it through this thing called hostage terrorism. And there were 94 incidents, kidnapping incidents in April of 2004.
That's a lot.
March of 2004, there was 0. So in 1 month, on steroids, this new tactic, this new tool. So that meant every person in Iraq, every contractor, every civilian, including Iraqis, most targeted victims actually were local Iraqis. Everyone was a target of this, and it affected everything. And I was thrown into this and realized right away when the month I got to Baghdad, July, there were 31 international kidnappings. It went to 44 and then like 56. So literally my entire 120-day tour was just handling a crisis that was spinning out of control. And, in the midst of it, I learned early on that when I formed the working group and had weekly meetings with the agency, the FBI, the Special Forces Task Force, both JSOC and the others, and like the Green Berets and SEALs that I had just been supporting as a SOC sent officer at higher headquarters. And I'm like the only person that saw this crisis for what it was. In fact, when I got home after this first day on the job, this Bulgarian kidnapping case where we brought it, I tracked an analyst. We brought him in, the U.S. ambassador, the Pullman ambassador. At the time, it was ambassador, the deputy chief of mission, Ambassador James Jeffries and Ambassador Paul Newman. We briefed them that day, and this young analyst from DI basically said, "Hey, Zarqawi is the leader of Al Qaeda in Iraq. He is the guy that cut off Nick Berg's head, and if he says he's going to kill your hostages, that's what's going to happen." And the two Bulgarian envoys kind of nodded in agreement, and they were sitting there chain smoking in a room that had signs that said "Do not smoke," and this was in the ambassador's office. Pretty funny. And they're just sitting there chain smoking, and when they heard that these two were going to be killed, they just kind of said, yes, life is very tragic, and smoked on. Yeah. And lo and behold, the analyst turned to the ambassador and said, "Sir, pending your questions, I have to go back to Camp Victory." So the ambassador turned to me and said, "Dan, well, please take care of these guests, and I want to be informed of everything that develops on this case." And this was literally within hours of arriving in Baghdad the night before at about midnight. So day one on the job, it was what I call Message of Garcia, which ironically enough was the very first lesson I learned at the Naval Academy about initiative and getting the job done. And just in a nutshell, it's a parable.
Tell that story. Tell that story real quick.
Yeah, and it's the basis for, you talk to any West Point or Annapolis, I think even at the Air Force Academy, and certainly everyone I know in infantry, every Marine I've ever met knows this story. And it's essentially turn of the century, Spanish-American War. The U.S. wanted to support a rebel. There was a rebel leader leading the insurgency named Garcia. General Garcia was hiding in the jungles of Cuba, and President McKinley wanted to deliver a message to him. And it said, "We must get this message that we will support the insurgency against the Spanish." And the War Department, back when the Pentagon used to win wars, what was called the War Department, they summoned this West Point graduate, Lieutenant Rowan, who was summoned to the War Department in the Pentagon, walks in the room with all the generals. This young lieutenant walks in and said, "This message must get to Garcia." He simply walked up, grabbed the folder, stuck it in his satchel, saluted and said, "Yes, sir," walked out of the building and went on to go deliver the message down to Cuba. Now, the point of that message was he didn't ask in front of all the generals, "Who's Garcia? Where's Garcia? How do I find Garcia? Who's going to fund this trip?"
Yeah.
He understood the commander's intent. The guy was, a smart guy. He had actually, his background was suited. He was a cartographer. He spoke Spanish, had been to Cuba. He was a natural guy, and he knew what was happening. He knew what commander's intent was. He knew that this message, he knew who Garcia was. And again, resourceful young West Point graduates, all service academy graduates, when you're handed a mission by your superiors, they don't tell you what to do or how to do it. They just give you the order. This is what needs to be done, and you go execute. And that's the whole basis of why Message Garcia resonates, because I realized at that moment in time, I thought my Message Garcia moment would happen when I'm a SEAL team platoon commander back in the late 90s, when I was leading, SEAL Team 3 platoon, and we were called up to set up a CSAR det for Saddam was splashing the YouTube flights that were going over enforcing the sanctions. And I stood on standby for 3 weeks, ready to go in to do a combat search and rescue mission. But again, it didn't happen. And like most of us who are called to serve, that moment that we're called for, it doesn't come when we expect it. And it comes when we least expect it. And for me, it happened I was 35. I'm a reservist. I was about to go home to my wife and start a family, but God called, and the nation called, and I stepped up, and it's what became the next 2 years of my life. as I called it, my mission, Daniel in the lion's den. I got firsthand experience of the same biblical Daniel who was in Babylon, and I happened to be in Baghdad. But so that's going to be the themes. But again, bring it to today, why is it important is over my 2 years, we had 448 kidnappings. And the insurgency and jihadists, they weren't taking original playbook. They have used this mindset and ideology going back to the 72 Olympics when they grabbed, the Black September grabbed the Israeli hostages, and that iconic image of the guy with the balaclava looking over the side of the building. Well, then we had the 1979 overthrow of the American embassy. It woke up the world in America. Most people didn't even know what Iran or Iraq was, much less what Islamic, ideology was, theocracy. And it comes back time and time again. You had the Lebanon crisis, the kidnapping crisis in the 80s under Reagan. You had Iran-Contra, the failed embassy attempt, the rescue attempt. And when Iraq stood up, for decades we learned, don't launch hostage rescue. They're fraught with disaster, and the consequences of political fallout can be catastrophic if you try and negotiate with hostages. So for about 2 decades, we didn't do that. But after Iraq and my tour, we were forced to deal with this. And eventually we turned the tide of 30, 40 kidnappings a month. They were in single digits by the time I left. And the task force finally got off their keisters and took out this kidnapping ring that I had identified about 6 months into my tour. And for about a year, I kept pleading with, the leadership, here's the kidnapping ring. They're based in Baghdad. It's run by a professor of Islamic study at Baghdad University who would invite journalists to his mosque, and then he would kidnap them as soon as they left. And this guy, millions, and funded the insurgency. And again, why it's relevant is that we saw every 4 or 5 years after I left, we saw the kidnapping tool. The Taliban used it very effectively with Bo Bergdahl. I mean, hell, they swapped a E4, E5 who walked off his post, abandoned his post for 5 major ranking Taliban leaders and Al-Qaeda leaders, the equivalent of trading a buck private for 5 generals, which is what happened. Then you had ISIS, the rise of ISIS. They started putting these beheading videos back out on the net. And then what happened, October 7th of last year, Hamas staged the largest mass kidnapping almost in history, which continues to this day. Yeah. And I would make the argument that there will be another 9/11. And I guarantee you one of those scenarios will be a mass kidnapping. Imagine 3 suicide bombers walking into an elementary school in Arizona at 1:00 Eastern Standard Time. And then simultaneously in Kansas at a high school, the same scenario. It happens simultaneously in, say, Ohio and a liberal arts college in the Northeast. 4 schools, 3 different time zones, 4 or 5 schools, 3 different time zones simultaneously. Can you imagine what it would do for this country to have a hostage scenario scene play out like a Beslan, but Beslan times 4 or 5? And that was
the Russian,
correct.
The Chechens who came in and
killed
a lot of children. Yeah.
And Lynn, we know that, Sarah McAdams has talked about this repeatedly, that in that 4 years with no border, 10 to 20 million people walked across our border. We don't know exactly the numbers. Low estimates are that 1,000 insurgents and jihadis with ISIS and Al-Qaeda connections have infiltrated. And why wouldn't they have walked across the border, right? And that they're plotting the next incident that could be a massacre. Europe has had multiple incidents where 4 or 5 armed gunmen have taken over, venue halls, concert halls, and the whole combination of, hostage taking, suicide vests, suicide bombs, IEDs. If we don't think that can happen again, and just because it hasn't happened on our soil, America will not be ready for it. The only people who are going to understand it and go, well, welcome to the world I lived in over that deployment, or multiple, between Iraq and Afghanistan, because suicide bombings and IEDs and VBIEDs, vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, were happening on a daily basis for every soldier, airman, sailor, and Marine that deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan from, 2001 up until 2018, 2020.
So the book is called Into the Lion's Den. You can pre-order it at historyofbooks.com or anywhere, actually, but just to put that out there. So I wanted, I thought of you this morning because Trump said this morning that he wants to take back Bagram Air Base, and you were very much involved with Operation Pineapple, moving, American assets out of Afghanistan that were Afghanis that, helped the Americans, and you were very involved in that. But what do you think of that whole concept of taking back Bagram?
Well, we never should have given up Bagram in the first place. Had we not given up Bagram, which was what General Scotty Miller had recommended to the president, and keeping behind a stay-behind force, a stabilizing force of roughly 2,500 troops and combat enablers, we could have held on to Afghanistan and held on to probably the most strategic air base in the region to not only deal with what's on the horizon right now for America. What are our two biggest threats right now? Take out Ukraine, but our biggest threats right now are China and Iran. And Bagram was within an hour's flight of both the, less than an hour's flight, frankly, between Iran and China for a strategic enemy. So yes, there was that speculation that a plane, in April went in, a C-17 landed in Kabul or Bagram, sorry, with reportedly one of the deputy directors of the CIA to start the negotiation. And I've heard through the network that China, Afghanistan, Kabul, the Taliban are not happy with China. And anyone who works with China China has the Belt and Road Initiative. I saw this in Asia. I know they're all over South America, and I saw it in Africa on some of my trips. China is everywhere. And when they go into a place and they make a deal, you're making a deal with the devil. They put in infrastructure, roads, ports, but then they make you pay back that loan. And those are not good terms. And people are finding out that the U.S. The only people who hate doing business and hate America are the people within our border, ironically enough, and members of the Democratic Party. I can't, it boggles the mind because we are good partners overseas. We are good steeds and good relationships, despite all, the challenges we do have. And so if we do, Trump says a lot of things, right? Greenland, we want to annex Canada as a 51st state. And he does it to get people wrapped around the axle for a lot of things. But I think the Bagram discussion, even the fact that it's even being discussed is certainly rattling Beijing and certainly making Tehran. I mean, look what Trump just pulled off last week during Mother's Day. I mean, the only thing he didn't do was deliver flowers, provide 1-800-Flowers for every mother in America. He was more focused on, what's happening in the Middle East, potentially trillions of more investment coming back into the U.S.
Yes.
I know he's apparently backdoor negotiation to resolve a Pakistan-India conflict that's brewing right now. And the Zelensky meeting that may or may not be happening. I mean, the negotiations to resolve the Russia-Ukraine conflict, it's happening, despite, all the naysayers. But
it's happening.
It's been 100 days of very consequential things, from the tariffs to everything else. So,
and they got to get Edan Alexander out of Gaza. How many do you think there are any hostages left alive? That's your business.
So he reportedly is the last American that we've got home. Now, I'm on Signal. I'm getting feedback from Israel on a daily update that I keep informed on. And again, there were 251 taken total, and they range from as young as like 9 months old to like 85, 86 years old. They're now down to what was somewhere between 40 and 50 still behind, which are principally military age males and reservists and or Israeli army folks that they're going to be held to the bitter end. What I've heard is the estimate is that maybe 30 are still alive. Again, don't know that, but of the 251, they now have recovered because of what Trump pulled off last weekend. There's no more American hostages being held that we know of. But there's probably another 30 that are being held in horrific conditions in these tunnels that still exist. And it's heartbreaking for those families because, they're past 500 days held. And what I've seen interviews with the hostages, they're basically being fed one piece of stale pita bread a day, which, it's the American. I saw the image of him hugging his family. He definitely looked gaunt and you've seen other hostages being released that have certainly lost considerable weight, but he didn't look like it didn't look as bad as it could have been, at least the American, from what I saw. So, but you know, that
probably because he was American, I would think.
Probably, but
yeah.
I mean, Todd, you're a SEER graduate. You know, can you imagine living in SEER-like conditions, food-wise alone, and you know, being in a tunnel? There's sensory. I mean, these hostages are going to have a lifetime of counseling and treatment because of that. Of course. You know, every time they close their eyes and go to sleep, they're going to be having these flashbacks. It's going to be a long road.
You're talking about serious survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training, but
POW training for U.S. Pilots and anyone who can special operations forces that stand the risk of being captured and held by an enemy. Yes.
Anything else we should be aware of in the region, Dan? You've got the expertise.
Well, I think we still have to be. Iraq is still, and Syria. I think Syria is something that, I mean, I'm seeing numbers, tens of thousands of Christians that are being slaughtered in Syria right now.
That's a big problem. Yeah.
And President Trump just met, I believe, you know, shook hands with the current leader, who's a former ISIS member, who is now a wolf dressed in a suit. But, you know, my experience, 30 odd years in the region, you know, you trust no one. And, you know, it is there is genocide going on. And the genocide that's happening is in the Christian communities in that region that no one is talking about. And it's heartbreaking. And that's something that needs to be, you know.
Yeah, we're trying to raise that issue. I think that the meeting with Galani, who you're talking about, I forget his new name, Al-Shabaraa or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think I think that's a bigger play. I think Erdogan wanted that. So Trump gave it to Erdogan because Erdogan is pushing Zelensky to negotiate and solve the Russian problem in Istanbul as we speak. So I think that was a bigger play. And, you know, Trump is, you know, weighing the odds and getting the big conflict solved. But yeah, that's a big problem. Christian massacres in Syria and Iraq and all over. They've been depopulated essentially. But anyway, thank you for coming on, Dan. Really appreciate it. Short notice, my friend. And
always. We'll talk again soon. And I got to get back to some research and get that draft back to Curtin and Hysteria. But we're going to get it done. And I'm sure I'll be back on board with seeing you guys in the future.
Talk soon. Ciao.
Cheers.
Take care.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these. And we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our CDM.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Welcome back to the SCIF. I hope you enjoyed Commander Dan O'Shea. Really a treat to get that kind of expertise. That's what we're known for here, and we have more guests coming. I'm getting General Flynn coming in and other people, so it's going to be a heavy week next week with some really good guests. Let's go back to the story we were on before Dan came on. What's going on in Istanbul? Ukraine has arrived. Russia has arrived with a low-level delegation. Zelensky backed off and sent his low-level people, but it looks like the negotiations are going forward. Trump said he wasn't going to go. I think that was kind of he was waiting to see what Putin was going to do. Putin said, Zelensky was out taunting Putin, so of course he's not going to come. I think that was on purpose to get Putin not to come because they don't want peace. But it looks like the two sides are talking. I do believe, as I mentioned with Dan, that Erdogan is heavily involved in this and is working to help get the negotiations going for President Trump, because President Trump gave him a solid down in Syria and met with the al-Ghalani, or al-Shura, his new name, Ghalani, who was the al-Qaeda terrorist. And yes, Dan is right. There's been thousands and tens of thousands of minorities, but thousands of Christians murdered in Syria in a genocide, ethnic cleansing. It's horrific, and the U.S. government has been kind of quiet on that whole thing. So that's not cool at all. It's one of the areas we're really focused on. We reached out to several groups in the region that are trying to protect Christians. We hope we can get them on the show in the future, but that's what we're working on as far as trying to get that kind of insight here. So next story. We talked about the negotiations going on in Istanbul, but let's talk about election fraud. If you go to cdm.press, we had Chris Gleason on yesterday talking about what he has found in, again, the blank ballots in 2024. This story's been going on since 2016. So it happened in 16, it happened in 20, it happened now again in 24. Nobody wants to talk about it. You won't see the story on Conservative Inc. Liz Harrington did come out and retweet Chris yesterday on this story, which means that the Trump organization knows about this, but you will not see this on Conservative Inc. And the question is why? Why won't the rest of the conservative media talk about the blank ballots, where upwards of 20 or 30% of the ballots in Broward County specifically and in Baltimore are showing up, the machines registering as completely blank? Broward County, I think, is 5 million people. Are you telling me that 20 to a million people are showing up to vote and not marking the ballot at all? That is simply not statistically possible. It doesn't make sense. And it's obvious that there's massive cheating going on. So the machines, you go in and vote, the machine takes your ballot and said, well, we're going to make this one blank and we're going to give it to Biden. That's what's going on. It's the machine fraud up in your grill, and nobody wants to talk about it. We've been screaming from the rooftops for years on this issue here at CDM, especially on our Georgia show and on the Miami Independent, which is our paper down in Florida. But you know what? It's time for the rest of the media to pick it up. We don't need credit. We just want the issue dealt with, because our elections are being stolen. That's simply a fact. Florida is not the gold standard. There's massive election fraud going on in Florida, in Georgia, in Maryland, in Wisconsin, in Arizona, in Pennsylvania. It's happening, and it has to stop. And you got to get involved and get rid of these machines. We're very active in Georgia. We have some of the Georgia show we may play from last night, where we talked about all this and what's happening in Georgia. But it's a mess, and the leadership in Georgia is simply working for the globalists and not the people of Georgia. But also in Maryland, you wonder why Baltimore's so screwed up. It's because all the elections are fraudulent, just like everywhere else. So go to cdm.press, check out that story, share it. I'm told, Chris tells me, there's more to come on this story. He is going to bring it out on Broward County next. But if you scroll down, you can see all kinds of graphs exactly how this is being done. He puts the receipts on there, and he lays out the constitutional case to stop this. It's really horrific. So check it out, cdm.press. Check out the story and tell your friends. The other story I wanted to discuss is nuclear war. John Mills had a great story up on CDM this morning. He's a contributor. Of course, he's on other publications, but he contributes with us as well. Only fly on airlines that are EMP ready. Do you know what EMP is? It is electromagnetic pulse. Our grid is very vulnerable to this. This is the electromagnetic pulse that comes from a nuclear explosion, and it can shut down all electronics and basically fry them in a huge radius. So that means no water, no food, no medicine, no transportation, no hospitals, no police no communications. So his point is, one, you got to be ready for that. And that's why we preach resilience here with our food at cdmfood.com, with financials, with CDM Metals, and with David Cross, with Marjorie Wildcraft as CDM Food, as we said, with the Wellness Company and their emergency medical kits like this right here. Go to twc.health/CDM, use promo code CDM, and make sure your family is protected, because if one of these babies goes off, you're talking 3, 6, 9 months or a year with nothing. You need to be able to survive. And guess what? If you're in New York City and everything shuts down, you're going to have a real problem. If you're out in the rural areas, it may be a little better. But if you're in a crowded urban area and one of these pops off, we're not talking buildings destroyed. We're just talking everything is gone. You can shield. Amy Williams just said, get the EMP shield for cars and generators. Yes, you can do that. But you need to, the bottom line is you need to prepare for it. And the airlines are preparing for it. And that's the point of this article. Airlines prepare for nuclear war. And John says, wow, this is a disturbing story in many ways. And yes, it is. It's extremely disturbing. But that doesn't mean you ignore it. It means you deal with it. So go to cdm.press, check that out. And it's also, well, I was going to say it's on armedforces.press, but it's not on AFP. But you can check out the Trump Bagram story on armedforces.press. That is there. Trump wants the air base back. And he wants it for strategic reasons, because as Dan said, it's right between Iran and China, or next to it, and it is a key facility in the region. That's why Biden got rid of it as quick as he could and gave away all the equipment, because he was working for Beijing. But it's an interesting point that the Taliban doesn't want the Chinese anymore, because they're basically predators. They come in, as he said, and make a lot of loans, but there's terms of these loans, and then they start taking infrastructure. And we're also going to have the Ali Nazari, who is the foreign minister for the Taliban resistance, who we've had on many times. We actually interviewed. You can find that interview on armedforces.press on AFP. The interview with Masood, the son of the Northern Alliance leader who was assassinated by the Taliban back during the Afghan war with the U.S., but his son is leading the resistance in the mountains against the Taliban, and they're good friends of ours, and we talk to them regularly. And I texted Ali recently, and he said he'll come on as soon as he can. So we will talk about that whole story as well. Also on AFP, I want to just mention, we need your help on our merch. So if you go to AFP, in the top left store, armedforces.press, top left corner, you can go to our AFP store, and you can see all the different merch that we have. It's really cool stuff. You can look good in the gym. Look at all this cool gear to work out in. If you have that somebody who has everything and they're looking for something to get for a gift or for Christmas or for a birthday or whatever, this is a fantastic option. So go to armedforces.press and check out the merch store, top left corner. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we got the big treat of the day, Michael Yon, at the top of the hour. He'll be with us, so we'll be right back.
Special report. Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. You just pack a punch that, you know, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. You know, we think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, you know, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker's stealing all the applicants.
So welcome back to the SCIF. We are going to have Michael Yon come on here at the top of the hour. While we're waiting for him, I just want to pitch my new book, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. If you go to historyofbooks.com, you can get it there. We got signed copies at ltoddwood.com. But what people don't realize is, and we need to try to get the word out better, and we're trying to get it to the, you know, I'm sure the Trump administration is aware, but there are ways of bringing down the Iranian regime without going to war against Iran. And Trump is out, and I wanted to talk about this actually because Trump is out talking about Iran and how it may be solved without going to war, and there may be a deal. So he met with Qatar, and he met with all the other Middle Eastern leaders, and he's saying that, look, I think we're going to get a deal. So check out my book, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance, and you can find out everything that's going down inside the country. I guarantee you will learn something that you don't know already. So about Iran, about the people, about how they've been fighting this regime for 40 plus years, really, and they have nothing to lose. So they know they're going to be tortured and killed when they go out and protest, but they do it anyway. And it's really fascinating. And I've got all the receipts in this book of how the group was formed, how it operates today, who is involved, the women, the female story of this thing is just amazing. So it looks like Michael is ready. I'm going to bring him in. My friend, how are you?
Oh, it's another day in paradise here. I'm in Texas, up from Panama. Last time we talked, I was in Panama, right?
Yes. So I wanted to have you on because I saw what you were posting about Governor Abbott and everything, and I think you're spot on. But can you just give us the overview of what you're seeing in Texas with the immigration and deportation or lack of it?
Yeah, actually, you know, let's see here, where to start. You know, I spend a lot of time in Texas. I've been across the entire southern border from SpaceX on the Gulf side to San Diego. Took many months, did it on many trips and spent many a night there on that ground on the Mexican side as well. And so I'm familiar with that border, and I'm familiar with a lot of the other things going on in Texas, such as the colonias, or a colonia is a colony, right? So Mexico is colonizing the United States. They're open about it. They don't hide it. You know, Reconquista. Everybody seems to know this in the Mexican world, but the Americans are just like, there's no Reconquista. It's like, actually there is, right? 100% there is. And so, and it's because Mexico claims a big part of the United States, including all of Texas, right? And all of California and whatnot. So, you know, in that framework, they have a right to Reconquista, reconquest. And so, they're doing it. And there's people like Abbott who are helping, not just Reconquista, And La Raza, which is the race, which is an incredibly racist group, actually makes, pretty much all the racists look the same, with their extremity. So Governor Abbott here in Texas, we know that he is aiding and abetting this. He does it openly. He does bow and do some kayfabe now and then and make it appear that he's doing something. But anybody that even scratches the surface, which we do much more than scratch the surface, knows that Abbott is World Economic Forum. He's on their website. Yesterday, I was watching a video on the Texas House of Representatives. It was a hearing, and it was actually testimony. And the chair of this actually welcomed his stakeholders. The Texas House of Representatives used the word stakeholders.
That's a WEF term, definitely.
100%. That's like Heil Hitler WEF style. I mean, literally welcoming your stakeholders is like starting with some whatever your special salute is for your organization, right? That's what he did. Yep.
Totally.
And so a couple of days ago, I've spent a lot of time over at Colony Ridge researching that with our Burning Edge team. We've taken a lot of people there, congressmen, and just tons of people. And we put it on the map thanks to Todd Bensman had written about it in his book. Actually, Todd got his tip from law enforcement over there who were very upset. So Todd put it in his book, Overrun. I read that, and then Todd took me to Colony Ridge 2 or 3 years ago. Then we found a patriot, or I found a patriot named Dave Cannon. He has a helicopter and an airplane, and he would take us on flights over Colony Ridge, which he flies over all the time anyway in his normal work. And so Dave just took me for a flight again 2 days ago, went over helicopter and then came back later with the airplane and got higher. And we can see now that Trump is in office, most of the construction seems to have stopped. Since the last time I was at Colony Ridge, a great deal more construction has occurred. But then when Trump got into office, there is a little bit of construction going on, but most of it stopped. Now, Colony Ridge is near Houston. It's in Liberty County, for those who are familiar with Texas, Liberty County, and it's meant to be home for 200,000 aliens. They got a school there built with U.S. tax dollars teaching Mandarin. Most of the people there are actually Latins, though, but they're teaching Mandarin at the school, right? Wow. And so that's just one of many colonias, right? And it's called Colony Ridge. They don't even hide it what it is. Colony Ridge. Yeah. And so now, why isn't Texas doing mass deportations? Why not? Well, first of all, Governor Abbott got a total over the years of about $1.5 million from Trey Harris that's actually known. Trey Harris is the developer of Colony Ridge. So they have a relationship built on money. I think Trey Harris might be the number 15th donor to, on level of magnitude to Governor Abbott, something like along those lines. It's a ballpark. He's a serious donor, right? And so Governor Abbott still has open door with him. He was seen at a table with Trey Harris. Governor Abbott and Trey Harris were at the same table within the last month or two, right? So I mean, this is the thing. Law enforcement across America, there's a provision called 287G, 287G, Gulf, 287G. 287G is a provision that will allow federal law enforcement to basically train up and deputize local law enforcement across the country, whether that be municipal or at the county or parish level or state level, so that they are able to take into custody people that are wanted for crossing the border illegally or being here illegally, right? So in other words, with 1 week of training, law enforcement can go and be certified to do this. Now, one of the things that you can do with 287G is if you do a traffic stop or catch somebody shoplifting or whatever, some interaction with them that leads you to wonder, is this person in the country legally? You can just run it on the ICE database and get a result back in a minute or two, right? And if it's, no, this person needs to be taken into custody or whatever, you'll know that instantly. But only one state out of 49 is actually doing this, and that's Florida. Florida is the only non-sanctuary state, despite what all the rest may say. Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, whatever, Alaska, all are sanctuary states. And the reasons that they're using for this are they don't have enough manpower. All right, you don't have enough manpower. You got enough manpower to give traffic tickets, but not to take people in who are literally raping and murdering across the country at this point. Literally. We know huge amounts of Chinese have come through who are highly suspected of being MSS, Ministry of State, that's their CIA, right? A Ministry of State Security, or PLA, their army. We've got huge numbers of people like this. We got huge numbers of Iranians, Afghans, Pakistanis. One guy who recently shot a Jewish man, Todd Bensman, has written about him. I saw the name in one of Todd's articles. The guy was from Mauritania, Africa, and he was apparently screaming Allahu Akbar, shot a Jewish guy, and his name was in Todd's article. So I looked up his name on a database. I have a database of over 1 million people that came through the Darien Gap, 1.05. I think about 1.4 million came through during Biden's time. I don't have all the records, but I have a little bit over 1 million, 1,050,000, right? And so, and this guy was on the record. I mean, he came through the Darien Gap, or he was put into the database on January 2nd, 2023, which means he was actually helped by HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society literally helped a jihadist come through who then shot a Jew, yelling Allahu Akbar. Now, I have said this on talks and speeches and interviews that you're going to have Jews getting killed by people screaming Allahu Akbar, that HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, helped across the Darien Gap. And that's a fact. That guy did. So another example of somebody murdering people who were helped by Catholic Charities, HIAS, United Nations, Norwegian Refugee Councils, Doctors Without Morals, all these guys. Another one was Ibarra, the guy who murdered Laken Riley. He came from the Darien Gap. He's on the records. I know what bus he got on. His brothers came through months later, and I see what bus they got on the bus together. They ended up in the United States. They all ended up arrested. One of them for murdering Laken Riley. They all ended up in jail, one for life. And so we've had millions come through like this, yet our law enforcement have better things to do. Like what? What is better to do than defend our country against invasion? Even Texas.
I thought that was the big Trump push. You know, we may not be doing mass deportations, but we're going to get rid of the criminals, right? I mean, that was the promise.
Texas, listen, United States government, Trump should call every one of these governors on a group Zoom call, if the ones that'll come on, and say, look, we'll cut all of your funding, cut all state funding for every state, including Texas, that doesn't do this. I mean, if you want to do mass deportations, it takes a group effort. You know, and so the excuses that people are using is that there's not enough ICE agents. That's like child level stuff. That's the kind of idiocy that the people that were saying we can't close the Darien Gap. And I said with you before, if I had a table full of generals sitting in front of me and I was asking them about what are their plans for closing the Darien Gap, if I had one general say we can't do it, I would say you're dismissed. I spent months down there. Instantly, when Trump was in office, it was closed, right? Mostly closed. There's a drip drop coming through. What concerns me now, though, is that it's only a spring-loaded faucet closure. I mean, the spigot's off for now, but it's spring-loaded. It will turn itself back on if we don't dismantle the United Nations. We have to defund, dismantle, defang, and start prosecuting some members of the United Nations who are, because this is just going to start again, right? So there's no mass deportations going on, period. It's just not happening. There's a little bit there that's great for eye candy, and people go, oh, Daddy Trump is doing it. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not.
Yeah.
And now he's able to use as an excuse the local law enforcement that they're not doing it. And they are not. It's true. They are not. There are a lot of local law enforcement who clearly want to do it, including here in Texas. However, here in Texas, the Texas DPS, the Department of Public Safety, which is like Texas FBI, it's like the Florida FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. It's like Texas FBI. The Texas DPS, Department of Public Safety, first of all, I personally witnessed them helping the invasion into Texas. I personally saw it. I got it on video. really close, very close, like 10 feet away. I got it many times. Texas DPS helped with the invasion, period, full stop. Next, Texas DPS was very clear in this House oversight, Texas House meeting. It was testimony. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'll send you the link. But
okay.
DPS at about the 42-minute mark is actually saying that they don't want to participate in 287G. They don't want to participate in the mass deportations. Texas DPS says it crystal clear at a Texas House conference call, right? Or Texas House, actually not just conference call, but it was also a meeting, right? It was a physical meeting. And so
the Texas legislature is like really captured, right? I mean, you got them, they've got them, passing laws that you can't do a meme. I mean, it's pretty damn bad in Texas.
Let me give you the guy's name. The guy's name is Lieutenant Colonel Jason Taylor. He's the Deputy Director of Law Enforcement Operations at the DPS. His name, again, is Lieutenant Colonel Jason Taylor. He is the Deputy Director, Law Enforcement Operations at Texas DPS. That's the top dog right there. He's the Deputy Director. Obviously, he's speaking for the man, and he mentions that in his talk there in front of the Texas House, right? He says, for instance, if we're taking troopers, special agents, rangers off the line to process, then I think we're diminishing some of the public safety aspects of our agency, in my opinion. And he goes on and on and on. In other words, you're just a little child you're one of those children that would have been dismissed from the table immediately. These people, so many people told me over the past 4 years, there's no way to close the Darien Gap. And I'm like, child, next. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm talking people that work for the U.S. government, intelligence people, military people, no way to close it. I'm like, it is absolute child's play. One enabled captain could close the Darien Gap. And again, it was closed at least twice recently. One was during the pandemic, closed, locked down for more than a year. Nobody got through. Second, now that Trump is in office, it's almost completely closed. Maybe 5 people coming in a day now. Down from 1 month, there was 89,000, right? It's child's play to close it if that's what you want to do. If it's not what you want to do, you just make excuses like this, like we don't have enough ICE agents, or it's going to take people away from other things like guarding the ice cream stand or something, right?
So this guy's talking about public safety. Well, the number one threat to public safety is criminal gangs on the streets, right? So
actual invasion by China, invasion. They're coming here running dope grows. China is pulling fentanyl in. Actual real invasion in the real sense, not any kind of loose talk with loose usage of the word. I mean, war invasion is happening, and this punk will not even, he is a treasonous punk. He should be dismissed from the force. In fact, all the top leadership at the Department of Public Safety in Texas should be removed. And Governor Abbott, so-called Governor Abbott, who's World Economic Forum, they're not doing it. They're just not going to do it. Remember, Texas DPS, and I have good friends who either are or were in DPS who don't agree with this. They want to shut it down. They want to do mass deportations. It's not like everybody in DPS is bad. That's absolutely false. The people at DPS are the ones that supply me so much information about this, right? They want it changed. They are run like the military is, like I had a call the other day. I was on a call, let's say. It was a House Oversight Committee call about this, and they were discussing what they should do, right? This is like 3 days ago now, right? Mm-hmm. They were discussing what they should do. How should they, who should they defund? I'm like, United Nations. They didn't even want to hear that. They didn't want to hear it. And then at one point, one of them on the call says, we shouldn't go after HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, Catholic Charities, and all these faith-based organizations, because that'll set, basically it would be bad politically, right? I'm like, who are these idiots, right? Yeah. I mean, listen, okay, let's go ahead and couch this in different terms. Shouldn't go after faith-based organizations like Catholic Charities, HIAS, Lutheran Services, who are invading the United States and Europe. So let's go to the faith-based organizations, Catholic Charities, HIAS, Lutheran Services, many more, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. These are faith-based organizations. He's saying we shouldn't do those because it'll hurt people's feelings. We're way beyond hurting people's feelings. I don't care about hurting anybody's feelings. We've got to mass deport. It's simply not happening. I don't see it happening. I think Homan is, and I have a lot of insider on this from various angles. I don't think Homan is enabled. I think Tom Homan, everything that everybody has ever told me about Tom Homan is he's a serious man. He's very serious. He's very competent. He's very capable. He's very serious. And at this point, he's not enabled, right? And I'm told from the Trump side that people are frustrated with Homan because Homan's not doing it, but Homan's not enabled. So Homan's obviously, what I think is happening, I'll give you some.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah.
I think Homan is there as a punching bag. I think he is there. There was no intention to close the border. I've said this no intention to do mass deportation. I said this many times. If we're really serious about all this, we're going to defund the United Nations. First stop. But I mean, when you're in office, free the January 6 people and boom, go after United Nations. It should be in sort of the first day should have had quite a few things like a bunch of pardons, free the January 6 people, and go right after United Nations and start with the mass deportations immediately. None of this is happening. None, right? We're not going after you. So why is Homan there? Homan's got great reputation. I haven't heard one single bad word about Homan. I mean, which is pretty amazing given my circle of friends and contacts. He's serious. So I've talked with Homan. He called me about going to the Darien Gap. We didn't go. He's busy on other things. Obviously, he's got a lot of fires. But I think Homan is there to take the blame. I think he will not be enabled. That's my assessment based on, hey, this is May. This is mid-May 2025. Right. I mean, we're way into this at this point. You know, people are talking about, we got to get this through. We got to get that through. It's like, listen, this joint call I did about 3 days ago. Yeah, 3 days ago on the House Oversight Committee, they were still talking about planning to plan. I mean, they should have come into the day Trump was inaugurated. It should have been execute, right? Actually, the day he was elected, they should have been getting lined up to execute this, right? They don't even know who to go after. They're like intentionally stupid, or they just are stupid. Lack of testosterone. Remember, cowardice is the germ of treason. A lot of these people that are in these positions are yes men. They're perpetual yes men. They will always be yes men. They're perpetual cowards, and they will be perpetual traitors. That's why a lot of them are in this House Oversight Committee. Based on that conversation, no chance. There's no chance we're going after the United Nations. Based on that conversation, it's like walking into a room and walking into a restaurant and smelling the toilet at the front door, right? Yeah. It's clearly not a place you want to eat. It's not a place that you want to be. And I can see with this House Oversight Committee call that they're not going to defund the United Nations. In fact, they're going to be body blocking anybody who goes after HIAS or Catholic Charities or any of these people. That was clear from that call. That's Americans need to be prepared for this, right? We need to be prepared for it's not going to happen under this administration. It's crystal clear. So we need to prepare ourselves that Daddy's not home in town. The mass deportations are not occurring. United Nations is not being dismantled, and choosing the least of evils every single time. Red pill, blue pill. I mean, seriously, that's a mind game in and of itself. Red pill, blue pill. That's part of the game that you have to select a red or a blue pill. How about I don't take pills, and I don't take pills from people I don't even know. What's your name? Yeah. Morpheus? I don't even know your last name. Just met you. You're offering me pills and a glass of water. These are your choices. I'm like, how about there's other choices? I can walk out the door, and anybody who's really been put up for the election in Texas or anywhere, Florida, and you can see there's a big architecture behind them, that's the red pill or blue pill. It's the same pill. It doesn't matter. It's like this jab or that jab. Hey, they're all death jabs, right? They're all the same. They're all death jabs.
So Texas has the same election problems that Florida has, but everybody's saying it's all great, but it's not. I mean, it starts with the elections, right? I mean, that's how, and they're being stolen left and right, and that's why we're getting people in that aren't doing the right thing because they're working for somebody else. So, what would you suggest people do at this point, Mike?
At this point, first of all, the elections clearly are being stolen. That's obvious, right? And part of it's being stolen just by people. Part of it's just huge psychological operations, like getting people to, whenever I go after Abbott, they would say the same thing when I go after Trump. It's always, who do you want? Harris? Of course I don't want Harris. That's like stepping on something on the sidewalk, right? Biden's the same way. Clinton the same way. Bush the same way. Obama, good grief. I mean, the same way. These are the same little piles of crap on the street, right? But it's always, but who do you want? That one or this one? And it was the same way in the Texas elections. When I was calling out Abbott before the last elections, like, this guy is bad. People kept saying, well, who do you want? Abbott or Beto? Well, they put Beto up, just like putting Harris up, because nobody's going to vote for that babbling idiot except for people on drugs.
It's like Stacey Abrams or Kemp. Same, and Kemp is going to Davos. Oh, we got to have Kemp because he's better than, I don't want Stacey Abrams, but Kemp is going to Davos and giving free passes to chemical companies from China and Georgia.
It's such a simple game, too.
Yeah.
It's a simple game. It's remember the Princess Bride where they're drinking, they're playing the game of wits, and the game of wits, the one guy gets poisoned and dies, and Wesley, the guy that poisoned him is like, they were both poisoned, but I built up a tolerance to this. Well, that's what Abbott is. He's the poison, right? We didn't go for that one. That was too obvious. So we took Abbott and died, right? We took Trump and died. We took, I didn't take Obama. I was against Obama from the very first, and the same with obviously Biden and Harris and all these clowns. I mean, it's very clear that the average Joe, especially with the amount of intoxicants flowing in this country, every time I come back to, or keep in mind, I spend most of my time downrange, but I have been all over this country, except for Alaska, extensively traveled around America. I went to school. I grew up in Florida. I went to school in California twice, right? And you know what I mean? I've seen this country in great detail, far more than most Americans ever will. I'm very familiar with the United States. I'm also familiar with downrange. I've been to 99 countries. Most of my life has been downrange and wars and that sort of thing. And so I've seen a lot of things. Some fish won't mix well in the same aquarium. That's one of the things I've learned in my travels. I've also learned that people are easily fooled, and they want to be fooled. You have to, people have to get out of any mindset that says, I can't have that thought. That thought's off limits to me, right? If thoughts that are off limits, like, hey, Abbott might actually be a bad guy, or Trump or Harris or Obama clearly he was no sooner in the office when he was becoming ultra racist in the open, right?
Sure.
Some of us warned about that before he was in office. It's the same play. So we have to vote for and support people. First of all, one thing you can do is stop giving any support to anybody who's not doing mass deportations, including Trump. If Trump comes up with excuses, don't support him. We don't have time for excuses. That's little child stuff, right? We need men and women who get up and work to get things done. If Texas, if Missouri, if Minnesota will not take part in 287G on these mass deportations, start cutting their funding. Do whatever you can to put pressure holds on them, right? Do whatever you can to stop these. Now, we may have states, again, will start to break off. We already see that happening right now. Of course, that's what China wants. I totally get this. Trust me. I mean, I've been to China. I've seen this happen all over the world, by the way. And there are people that are working very hard to break us apart. And one of the major weapons is mass invasion from tens of millions of people over the long years who shouldn't be here at all. They're never going to learn English. And by the way, it's important to learn English. Those who are like, the racist, just shut up. Get out of here. Got no time for it. When you're doing anthropological warfare, the main Tower of Babel, when God wanted to split people up, divide and conquer, Tower of Babel, speak your own languages, right? When we were doing the security for the Panama Canal, in other words, 1903, we formed Panama, started building the Panama Canal. One of the securities for the Panama Canal back in those days, more than 100 years ago, was to get everybody to speak Spanish, right? We wanted everybody to speak Spanish. You can speak your other. I'm out with the Indians all the time. I'm out with Imbra Indians. They message me every day. I'm out in the jungle with them all the time. I love them. They speak Imbra, but they also speak Spanish. I'm out with Kuna Indians a lot too. They speak Kuna, and they're proud of speaking Kuna, but they speak Spanish, right? It's sort of Spanification. You want them to speak Spanish, the same language, and your anthropologists are out there studying their anthropological firmware, their cultural firmware, to find ways to get them to get along, right? First, you need to speak the same language. And because generally when people speak the same language, they can often find ways to get along anyway, right? So the language barrier in itself tends to separate people eventually in bad ways. Now, Thailand, we helped King Rama IX, the former excellent king, actually, with what's called the Thaiification program. Thailand, again, is strategically very important. I spent a lot of time in Thailand. I'm not talking about Taiwan, also important, but I'm talking about Thailand, right? So Thailand, when the king...
I spent 3 months in Thailand. I know it well. Back in my Air Force days. So flew all over there.
Yeah, I mean, I know you know. I'm talking about for people that get confused. They're like, oh, Thailand, I'm going surfing in Taiwan soon, and they get them mixed up. There's totally different places, very far apart, different languages, different cultures, the whole thing. But the point is with the Thaiification program, Thailand is actually many peoples. If you land at Suvarnabhumi Airport or somewhere, Don Muang Airport, you're in Chiang Mai Airport, start looking at all the different faces of Thai people. Within an hour, you're going to see so many different sorts of people, very different, right? Very different features, skin colors, but they all speak Thai and they all see themselves as Thai. How did that happen? Just in the Isan area alone, there's about 17 major languages like Khmer, Lao, Karen, so many Hmong. There's so many different languages there, right? And you can speak all your original languages, great, please do, but speak Thai, right? And they got the Thai people to all speak Thai, to be proud to speak Thai, to be proud to speak Thai well, and to write Thai well, and be proud to be resilient, be proud to be Thai. Every day they play the national anthem in Thailand, and people actually stop in a moment of silence for the national anthem. So they made them proud to be Thai. That remains, but there's people attacking it now because they reverse the polarity on these things. That is what made Teflon Thailand. People are proud to be Thai, and they should be very proud to be Thai. Likewise with Panama, the United States put a lot of effort. Now, of course, when we were helping with Thaiification, King Rama IX did all the heavy lifting. We helped a lot in the background. The United States did, helping build roads and that sort of thing. And the moral backbone of Thailand was King Rama IX. He was excellent, great friend of the United States as well. And he pulled that country together and made it strong, right? And Thailand is the best country in the whole region to be in. That's why people fly halfway around the world to spend a month there. As you know, you were there for 3 months. Yeah. And a lot of people want to live in Thailand, like people from Paris and New York want to live in Thailand. So now, Panama, we did the same thing. Part of the security for the Panama Canal was to create a stable Panama, right? To get everybody to speak Spanish, to be proud to be Panamanian, right? And of course, that was later used to bite us because the enemies, like China actually, and the United Nations came in and said, "Hey, Panama, United States are colonists, right?" Actually, we actually created Panama in 1903, but and we only had that 10-mile stretch, 5 miles on each side of the canal, which we had by treaty when we formed Panama. That was why we formed Panama. Everybody knew it. And anyway, using the information war, United Nations helped, through Jimmy Carter and other traitors, like basically the Abbott of the time, gave Panama away. People say gave Panama Canal back to Panama. That's nonsense. Panama never had the Panama Canal, and they didn't build it. We built it, right?
Yeah,
Very
sure.
few Panamanians even worked on the Panama Canal. Even as laborers, very few Panamanians worked on it. You got to keep in mind, back then, Panama was largely, listen, Panama is a sediment of colonists, including, many of the Latins will talk about decolonization, but many of them are from Spanish descent, the ultimate colonizers, right? So, I mean, you look at the sediment of human colonization, whoever the last one is the one you say, that's the colonizer. Like the Hawaiians are being used in an information war.
It's like the Native Americans are the what do they call it? Indigenous people. Well, they killed all the tribes who were there before them.
Exactly, like the Hawaiians. The Hawaiians killed the people that were there before, genocided them, right? Straight up. But now the Chinese are doing an information war in Hawaii, trying to get a lot of the Hawaiians to say, "Oh, the colonizers, we got." But the thing is if we get out of Hawaii, if Hawaii secedes, Hawaii will be taken for sure. And then those indigenous Hawaiians, they won't like what happens because they'll be the new Tibetans, right? They'll be
totally agree. So let me ask you this: free media, I think, is kryptonite to this globalist agenda, and that's why we're pushing this so hard. And what you're doing is so important. But what are you focusing on going forward? I mean, you've been highly effective. All these people are calling you to go to the Darien Gap, to the border. You've been highly effective. But where are you focusing going forward?
Continuing to be effective. As you know, my predictions have been incredibly accurate, actually, to the point where it's getting spooky even to me. It means I understand basically what they're doing. And so I'm constantly panning for gold for 24 karat information that's first principle truth, right? Like going to the Darien Gap, seeing for myself, going across the entire southern border, going to 30 countries in the last 4 years, looking at the routes and the resources and what's happening in Luxembourg and Netherlands and Japan and whatever, all these different places, and figuring out what's going on so that I can predict accurately, for instance, 4 years ago, that screwworms would make it back to the United States. I was openly predicting that in writing many times and on interviews, and boom, screwworms can be a big deal for us. For those who don't know what they are, just web search my name, Michael Yon, and screwworms, and you'll see about 4 years ago, I was publishing that I think we're going to be attacked with screwworms as a weapon, and here we go. It's happening.
Against our food supply on the beef. It's biowarfare, essentially.
So if your paradigm is accurate, the way you're looking at a situation or a people or a person, you should not be surprised by things that they do, right? Like if you know somebody is a bank robber and just did 10 years in prison for bank robbery, and then he moved into your neighborhood, and then the bank, which has never been robbed, suddenly gets robbed, and you predict, hey, it may have been my neighbor. You know what I mean? So you've got some, your paradigm about the situation is that. Well, I'm always developing my paradigms. I've been doing this since I was a teenager, studying physics so much. I always loved physics, and I was learning how to think, not what to think, but how to do your own thought hygiene, how to develop theories, hypotheses, and never get married to them. If it's wrong, throw it out or keep tweaking it until you're never surprised. If you feel the emotion of surprise, then obviously something's wrong. Like I don't understand why he did that. Well, the way I'm looking at him and or the situation is something's wrong with it. So I need to tweak it. And we all do this naturally, but you need to be really hardcore about it, precise, right? And with non-emotional, just very fact-based. So I'm constantly looking for this clean information. That's why I went to Germany several times before Nord Stream was attacked, saying I think somebody's going to disrupt Nord Stream, because under the paradigm that I'm continue to operate under is that there are entities that want to put us into global famines. Those global famines, if I were going to deindustrialize Europe, split Germany from Russia and other goals that they have, and create global famines, what would I hit? I would hit Nord Stream. I would hit BASF. So Masako Ganaha and I went to BASF. It's a factory in Germany. It's a huge in Ludwigshafen, Germany, on the Rhine River. We went to that factory twice. The second time we went to it was 14 days before Nord Stream got hit. We were warning. We even talked about it in the plant, actually, with somebody in the plant. Then, and I also predicted Groningen gas field, the biggest gas field in Europe. I predicted well in advance many times that I thought they were going to close that, and they did. But I've said this to you before. I keep repeating it. How did I get these wild, off the wall, throwing a dart very far, like 100-meter dart shots and hitting a bullseye? Because we do understand what they're doing. We don't understand everything that they're doing, but we understand some of their basic core goals. Core goals to depopulate planet Earth, right? Largely depopulated. That's obvious. How are you going to get there? Famines is one. Death jabs is another.
Wars.
Spraying in the skies. I don't know, right? There's many things that they're doing. Decrease our food supply, mass invasions so that we fight each other, so that the nation states are too weak to do anything and they become captured, right? So if you are going to do this, and if you are highly enabled, which they are, what would you do? Carver matrix, you do your assessment on targets. What would I hit? What's the most economical targets to hit so that I can hit the fewest targets most economically to get what I want done, right? And one thing that I would do for Europe, to split Russia from Germany, to really badly damage the German economy, which then badly damages the European economy, which badly damages a lot of economies, but also reduce the food supply by increasing fertilizer prices. I would take out Nord Stream, and I would take out Groningen gas fields. That's what I would do. And then and I said this many times, and they did it, right? What I'm getting to is, I've also said many times, the first thing that Trump needs to do when he gets in office is take out United Nations. If he does not do that, this is all bullshit. If he does not do that, this is all a game. So now, this is May 2025. We do not see any mass deportations going on. We do not see nobody's touching United Nations. I was on that House Oversight Committee call just 3 days ago. They don't even have a plan to plan yet. They're talking about making a plan to plan. I mean, so it's just not going to get done. Remember, Trump only has WASTA, or let's say heavy influence, for maybe 18 more months, if that, right?
Yeah.
And then he's going to be out of office.
Well, he may lose Congress too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And so he's basically an autumn leaf ready to fall off the tree. He'll be gone. We'll soon forget Trump was ever president, and it'll be the next thing. And people, what can we do? First of all, you have to be courageous. You have to be courageous and just face the truth. The truth is, if we keep selecting the least of evils, the other one is evil. They're both red pill, blue. They're pills from a guy we don't know. We have to elect people and work hard that elections are not stolen. We have to elect people that aren't even on the menu. They're not on any of the menus. Don't give money to any less of the evils. If you're telling myself, well, he's the less of the evils, let me give him $10 million, so I can have access to the lesser of evil. Now, if you're a foreign person, like if you're from a foreign country, that's a different game. Of course, you're going to play that game because you don't care about the United States. You're either milking it dry, as some are, like Israel, obviously milking us dry, or you are actively trying to destroy it, like China, right?
Yeah.
So they're gonna throw their money around appropriately. But Americans should never select the worst of evils. You need to run for office yourself. Whatever you do, don't give them any money. Don't give them any support. Don't say any good words about them. Giving good words or hiding from the fact that mass deportations are not occurring, or that the United Nations is not being dismantled, is actually supporting the destruction of the United States. Remaining silent and pretending that Fauci fooled everybody is, people are falling out of the trees dead every day now from the jabs, right?
Yeah. They're
clearly depopulating us. They're clearly fooling the critical mass of people. What can people do? Courage, courage, courage. Cowardice is the germ of treason, and cowardice makes people treasonous to themselves, right? Treason starts from within. First, you're treasonous to yourself, and then you're treasonous to your family, and then you're
courage is the main thing, because without that, you're not going to get any action at the local level. The elections are not. So people can make a big difference. They still can. Support free media. That's a huge one. I mean, because there's conservative ink is conservative ink. They won't talk about the elections. You will not have Chris Gleason on any of these other channels and talk about the blank ballots theft in Baltimore and in Florida and in Texas. That you just won't. I mean, it's shocking to see, but there's very few outlets like yourself that will actually get the truth out there. But anyway, we're about out of time, Michael. Is there anything else you want to get out?
No, sir. I'm still in the fight. You know, I was riding down the road with Doc Chambers the other day. You know, Pete Doc Chambers. I was actually giving a talk with him last night. We were together. And, you know, and one of the things that we're both fighting 7 days a week, right? And
Same
like
here, brother.
You too. And there's quite a few of us, actually. There's a lot of us. And like Doc said, we're gonna go over the line. We're gonna fight to our final day, right? We're not going to quit. We will not tire. We will not, we will not run off and just hide somewhere in a jungle and live alone. I mean, people like us could easily do that, right?
Sure.
Right. But we're doing the most dangerous thing in the world. The most dangerous thing in the world is to talk in these microphones. Nothing is more dangerous than that.
So true. So true, my friend. Thank you, Michael. I want to have you back. I'll watch your posts, and when I see something interesting, man, I'll ping you. All right. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. All right. Ciao. Take care.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other, put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mix it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have foot, slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Well, guys, we had a problem with one of our cameras. Had to change cameras there, so this is an emergency camera, but we're back. Sorry about that. I'm going to play a little bit of our Georgia show, which we run last night and on Sundays, and just give you a taste of this show, and then we'll close out the show. So here we go. Welcome to the Georgia Show. So, Bill, I feel a change is in the air. What about you? I think that the ground, the tectonic plates are moving in Georgia. What do you think?
There seems to be something up, especially following this past weekend. People are energized. They are doing things. They are involved in stuff. There's renewed push on election integrity. All kinds of things are moving around, and people are getting excited because we are about 2 weeks away from the Georgia GOP state convention, and they expect that to be, we'll call it, very interesting.
To be lit.
To be lit. Boy, you're hip. Are you like Generation Z?
I've been hanging out with my 16-year-old daughter. So welcome to the Georgia Show. We are brought to you by the Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com. CDM is growing. Georgia is growing with our media company, georgiarecord.com, and also the Georgia Show, which thank you for the audience all over the world. We got a global audience now because Georgia is so important. We really appreciate that. And you can help us by signing up for our social media. We really need help to get our X account bigger. And our YouTube, we're loading up the show on YouTube afterwards. So if you're a YouTube guy, subscribe to us on YouTube at CDM and check out our no ad subscriptions. We're getting a lot of support there. We really appreciate it. Gives you access to all of our content all over the world with no advertisements. We put out 20, 25 articles a day across the network, plus a lot of video work. And it's all with no ads on the print side. If you give us $10 a month or $100 a year, you get all of that with no advertisements. You sign in, and once you can go all over the different sites and no ads pop up on your phone. People absolutely love it. I get a lot of good feedback. So thank you for that. Bill, this is an important show. Tell us how this is going to go down.
Well, they're all important, but this one is actually pretty interesting. We've heard questions from people following the endorsement from Trump last week, and they've said, is Trump paying attention? Does he know the stuff that's going on here in Georgia? And no surprise, as has happened in many occasions, something popped out today that seems to address that directly. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the parallels with other things that are going on in other states. We're going to talk about the concerns that exist here, both those around the Georgia GOP, but also more generally around the governance here in Georgia. We'll look at, we hope to get in a bit of view on the president's trip to Saudi Arabia. We'll talk about some of the other findings that actually demonstrate that Trump's team is paying attention to the things that we and our extended team are bringing out, and probably a couple other things as we get through. So we will have quite a number of things to talk about today.
Well, before we get there, I want to just talk about one thing, and that is the wellness company. We've been talking about the wellness company for some time now. They're a big sponsor of this show, and we're asking you to support them. We have their travel kits. I use this everywhere. I take it everywhere I go when I travel. I've used it many times. You need something, a bite or a cut or a cold or something. Everything you need is in that travel kit, and it's saved me from going to the doctor and wasting time and money many times. Also, the methylene blue on there is selling real well as the parasite cleanse. So go to twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM, you get 10% off, but spend some time on the website. Check out their subscriptions. Check out their free nutraceutical subscriptions. Check out their emergency medical kits, their supplements like the Ultimate Spike Detox. If you've got somebody who's vaccinated, the studies have shown that this can help clear their blood of the spike protein, which causes, we don't really know what the spike causes longer term, but it's not good in many people. So just play around with the website, twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM if you go to checkout, and you get 10% off. Back to you, Bill. Let's get rolling. We got a lot to go through.
Okay, sounds good. So as we said, one of the questions that keeps coming up is, does Trump really know? Has he got eyes on, or does his team have eyes on the problems here in Georgia? Because it's not just one thing. It's a number of things. And so wasn't it interesting that we heard that question, and then today this pops up, and it's a post by a young lady talking about, if you see these unusual endorsements, understand that it's not just one. There's been quite a few, and don't panic. So let's hear what she has to say.
I know many of you are feeling disheartened. even betrayed by some of President Trump's recent endorsements. Names like Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, John Cornyn of Texas, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, Joni Ernst of Iowa, and Mike Lawler of New York, and right now, here in my home state of New Jersey, where my family lives, Jack Ciattarelli. These choices have left us scratching our heads, wondering how candidates who don't seem fully loyal to the Make America Great Again movement could get the nod. I feel it too. It's a gut punch, and it's okay to admit it stings. But let's be clear. This isn't about President Trump turning his back on us. The man who's fought for America against all odds is still leading the charge for a stronger, freer nation. The problem isn't him. It's the small circle of advisors around him, a cabal that's feeding him bad information and pushing candidates who don't stand shoulder to shoulder with us. Trump is one of the most insulated leaders in the world, and that's by design. Those of us on the ground, the boots pounding the pavement for this movement, know the truth. Many of these endorsements don't reflect the heart of MAGA or the loyalty we know Trump values. This isn't about pointing fingers or giving up. It's about recognizing where the real issue lies: access, influence, and who's got the president's ear. We've got evidence showing these candidates aren't the true patriots we need to carry Trump's vision forward. And we're not alone in seeing it. Millions of Americans from every corner of this country are with us, fighting for the same America First future. So to every one of you feeling the weight of this moment, don't let this shake you. We're still in this fight. We've faced bigger battles, rigged systems, media lies, and political elites, and we've come out stronger every single time. Keep knocking on doors, keep talking to your neighbors, and keep pushing for candidates who are 100% loyal to President Trump and the movement he's built. We're not just fighting for one election. We're fighting for the soul of America, for our families, for the golden age we know is coming. Let's channel this frustration into action. Reach out, share the truth, and demand that only true MAGA patriots carry our banner. We'll get the evidence to President Trump, and we'll make sure his team knows who's really with us. This movement is bigger than any one endorsement, and it's powered by you, the people. So stand tall, keep fighting, and let's make America great again together.
Hope you enjoyed the skip today. Sorry about the camera problems there. Again, it's a live show and things happen. We will be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock and close out the week, 10 to noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. And we'll have the Georgia show, which you just saw a clip of, on Sunday at 2. The Colorado show is at Sunday at 4. That may change, but that show is really popular. It's got more of a youth vibe, but it's really popular. But thank you for your support of CDM. Put us in your daily scan morning, noon, and night, cdm.press. And thank you for all your support, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.